Of Cato the Younger, I do not share that common error of judging another by myself. I easily believe that another man may have qualities different from mine. Because I feel myself tied down to one form, I do not oblige everybody to espouse it, as all others do. I believe in and conceive 1,000 contrary ways of life, and in contrast with the common run of men, I more easily admit difference than resemblance between us. I am as ready as you please to acquit another man from sharing my conditions and principles. I consider him simply in myself, without relation to others. I hold him to his own model. I do not fail, just because I am not continent, to acknowledge sincerely the continence of the Feuillon and the Capuchin, and to admire the manner of their life. I can very well insinuate myself by imagination into their place, and I love and honor them all the more because they are different from me. I have a singular desire that we should each be judged and ourselves apart, and that I may not be measured in conformity with the common patterns. My weakness in no way alters my necessarily high regard for the strength and vigor of those who deserve it. There are men who praise nothing except what they are confident they can imitate. Cicero. Crawling in the slime of the earth, I do not fail to observe, even in the clouds, the inimitable loftiness of certain heroic souls. It is a great deal for me to have my judgment regulated, if my actions cannot be, and to maintain at least this sovereign part free from corruption. It is something to have my will good when my legs fail me. This century in which we live, at least in our part of the world, is so leaden that not only the practice, but even the idea of virtue is wanting. And it seems to be nothing else but a piece of school jargon. They think that virtue is just a word, and a sacred grove, mere sticks. Horace. Something they should revere even if they cannot understand it. Cicero. It is a trinket to hang in a cabinet, or as an ornament on the end of the tongue, like an earring on the tip of the ear. There are no more virtuous actions to be seen. Those that wear virtue's appearance do not, for all that, have its essence. For profit, glory, fear, habit, and other such extraneous causes lead us to perform them. The justice, the valor, the good nature that we then exercise may be so called in consideration of others and of the appearance they bear in public, but in the doer this is not virtue at all. There is another end proposed, another motivating cause. Now virtue will avow nothing but what is done by and for itself alone. In that great battle of Potidæa that the Greeks under Pausanias won against Mardonius and the Persians, the victors, according to their custom, when they came to divide among themselves the glory of the exploit, attributed to the Spartan nation the preeminence of valor in this combat. The Spartans, excellent judges of valor, when they came to decide what particular man should go the honor of having done the best on that day, found that Aristodemus had hazarded his life most courageously, but they did not give him the prize, because his valor had been incited by the desire to purge himself of the reproach he had incurred in the Thermopylae action, and by a craving to die courageously in order to make up for his past shame. Our judgments are still sick and follow the depravation of our morals. I see most of the wits of my time using their ingenuity to obscure the glory of the beautiful and noble actions of antiquity, giving them some vile interpretation and conjuring up vain occasions and causes for them. With great subtlety, give me the most excellent and purest action, and I will plausibly supply 50 vicious motives for it. God knows what a variety of interpretations may be placed on our inward will for anyone who wants to elaborate them. In their calumny, they play at ingenuity not so much maliciously as clumsily and crudely. The same pains that they take to detract from these great names, and the same license I would willingly take to lend them a shoulder to raise them higher. These great figures, whom the consensus of the wise has selected as examples to the world, I shall not hesitate to restore to their places of honor, as far as my ingenuity allows me to interpret them in a favorable light. But we are forced to believe that our powers of conception are far beneath their merit. It is the duty of good men to portray virtue as being as beautiful as possible, and it would not be unbecoming to us if passion carried us away in favor of such sacred models. What these people do, to the contrary, they do either out of malice or from that vice of dragging down their belief to their capacity, which I have just spoken of, or, as I rather think, from not having their sight strong enough and clear enough, or properly trained, to conceive of the splendor of virtue in its native purity. So Plutarch is rightly annoyed that in his time some people attributed the cause of the younger Cato's death to his fear of Caesar. And we may judge from this how much more offended Plutarch would have been with those who have attributed Cato's death to ambition. Fools, he would actually have preferred to perform a beautiful, noble, and just action with ignominy than for the sake of glory. He was a true model, chosen by nature to show how far human virtue and constancy could go. But I am not equipped to treat this rich subject here. I want only to put in contention the lines of 5 Latin poets in praise of Cato, both in Cato's interest and incidentally in their own also. Now a well-educated youngster should find the first 2 languid, compare with the others, the third lustier, but overcome by the extravagance of his own power. He should think that there would be room for 1 or 2 more degrees of inventiveness before coming to the fourth, at whose work he will clasp his hands in admiration. At the last one, who is first by quite a space, and a space which our youth will swear no human mind can fill, he will be stunned and speechless. Here is a wonder. We have many more poets than judges and interpreters of poetry. It is easier to create it than to understand it. On a certain low level, it can be judged by precepts and by art, but the good, supreme, divine poetry is above the rules and reason. Whoever discerns its beauty with a firm, sedate gaze does not see it, any more than he sees the splendor of a lightning flash. It does not persuade our judgment, it ravishes and overwhelms it. The frenzy that goads the man who can penetrate it also strikes a third person on hearing him discuss it and recite it. As a magnet not only attracts a needle, but infuses into it its own faculty of attracting others, and it is seen more clearly in the theater than the sacred inspiration of the muses. After first stirring the poet to anger, sorrow, and hatred, and transporting him out of himself wherever they will, then through the poet strikes the actor, and through the actor, consecutively, a whole crowd. It is the chain of our needles, hanging one from the other. From my earliest childhood, poetry has had that power to transpierce and transport me. But this very lively feeling that is natural in me has been variously affected by a variety of forms. Not so much higher or lower, for they were always of the highest in each kind, as different in color. First a gay and ingenious fluency, then a keen and lofty subtlety, finally a mature and constant power. The examples will express it better. Ovid, Lucan, Virgil. But here are our poets in the list. Let Cato outdo even Caesar while he lives, says one. Martial. Cato unvanquished, having vanquished death, says another, Menelaus, and another, speaking of the civil wars between Caesar and Pompey. The gods chose the victorious cause, Cato the vanquished, Lucan, and the fourth, in praise of Caesar. This earth of ours he subjugated whole, excepting Cato's unrelenting soul, Horace. And the master of the choir, after displaying in his painting the names of the greatest Romans, ends in this wise, and Cato, giving them their laws,